say journalist. Do you know what a journalist is? Should there be professional standards? Should there be licensing? Is there a reason Tucker Carlson's not a journalist? I don't think I'm a journalist, but maybe I am. Couldn't an average person function like a journalist? I don't know what it is anymore.
Here's what journalism is. This is what journalism is: peeking your head down the street and reporting back what you see. That's what journalism is. And anybody could be a journalist because that's what it is. They don't want you to think that's what it is. They want you to think it's some kind of special class of person, because if anybody could do it, then everybody has a voice. And that's the last thing they want. So yes, you do journalism.
Did this take it away? Did this thing take it away? The phone, the fact that we have Twitter Spaces, and the fact that we can take pictures of everything, wherever we want. Where's my phone? There.
It certainly helps. It certainly helps turn everybody into a journalist, doesn't it? And by the way, when you gave my introduction, you could say you can see me everywhere. You can see me everywhere except TikTok. I got kicked off TikTok finally. And that's because TikTok is the most subservient to the security state, meaning the FBI and the CIA. And they do whatever they say because they don't want to lose their market share in the United States. They're not, anyway, so that's just another story. But anyway.
And didn't you have
We got in trouble on TikTok, and I refused to go on there. I mean, I might look at my friends, but we don't post
Susan is very concerned about
I think it's China.
Right. She's very concerned about the Chinese Communist Party controlling things. She figures that it's their business, so therefore they're involved with this. But you had an actual run-in with the FBI, didn't you, Jimmy?
I don't know. I don't remember me having a run-in.
I thought you told me that they showed up. Maybe it was Jimmy Dore that was telling me that. I mean, sorry, James O'Keefe, that somebody actually showed up and investigated you because I guess it was O'Keefe that had that happen to him. Yeah. And he was saying that was where his sort of shift came, where he started not trusting the government and start worrying about the overreach of the intelligence community and whatnot. And certainly I feel like the Twitter files have opened most eyes to the excesses, and yet they keep going on. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I hope you're right about that. It's opened people's eyes, because I don't think it did. I think people so what they're told in the corporate media is to dismiss it as Elon Musk and some right-wing kind of charade or some kind of scam that the right-wingers who are the and the anti-vaxxers, and they don't. So nobody actually really. And I was wishing more people would look into Matt type, because you saw what the Democrats did so they always pretend that Donald Trump was the enemy of journalists. So of course, what every accusation they make about Donald Trump is a confession, and because that's what they're doing. It's called projection.
It's a projection. Projection. Yeah. A friend of mine, I saw a psychoanalyst on an interview just the other day saying, whenever you hear a narcissist say, "I am," no, you are. What you should hear is, "I am." They always project. You are fill in the blank, but they really feel the reality is I am.
And so if you watch those congressional hearings with the Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi, it is disgraceful what happened. And I'm like, so now you know why people vote for Donald Trump, because both parties are completely bought. So I try to tell people, I go, we're run by a cabal of billionaires. They're like, oh, Jimmy, really? What kind of meetings do they have? I'll tell you the meetings they have. The meeting they have is called a session of Congress. When there's a session of Congress, do you think those people are in there doing the bidding of workers and the elderly and the sick and the students? No, they're there doing the biddings of the donor class, which is why our country is the way it is. It's not because of Russia, a country that has a smaller GDP than California. The way our country looks the way it is because the billionaire class wants it designed like that, because they're doing the bidding of the billionaire class. They can print $5 trillion during COVID, not one penny of it to go to try to fix homelessness. Up to the 1,000 richest people.
Welcome, everybody, to an early program today. Thank you for being here. We're early because our guest, Ivor Cummins, is in the European time zone. I think he's in Ireland right now. You can follow him at thefatemperor.com. I was just looking around the website. It is a lot of fun there. Check it out. Also on X, he is Fat Emperor. Ivor Cummins is a biochemical engineer, author of Eat Rich, Live Long, spent over 25 years in corporate technical leadership and management. And since 2012, he has been researching the root cause of chronic disease. And obviously, he'll have some opinions about many things, like the debacle of the COVID situation. I noticed some interesting things coming out of the World Health Organization today I want to bring up with him. He lives in Dublin, Ireland with his wife and 5 children. He has ideas, and I want to hear them. He is He has a huge network of medical, epidemiology, immunology, and specialized experts across the globe. Back with Ivor Cummins after this. Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. Joint and muscle pains are exhausting and frustrating, but I've got a over-the-counter medication I want to introduce you to that provides great relief using the power of, check it out, chili peppers. Capsidin is made with a proprietary formula that contains no non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents, no opioids, no anesthetic or steroid, nothing, no chance for addiction, no side effects, no chance it's going to interact with other medication you might be taking. Capsidin contains capsaicin, which is the substance in chili peppers that burns your tongue. That gives you that burny feeling. And of course, I've recommended capsaicin creams to patients over the years, but other capsaicin creams burn your skin. That's what makes capsidin so unique. In clinical trials, capsidin has actually been demonstrated not to burn.
I've been using capsidin to relieve my pain in my hands and my wrist from carpal tunnel syndrome and arthritis. The results have been amazing. I use it every day during my show, and I highly recommend it.
Get the pain relief you need from various sources, even backache, sprains, bruises even. Order now at capsidin.com/Drew to get a 15% discount plus free shipping. That is CAPSADYN, capsidin.com/DREW. In addition, we're going to be talking about mass migration and some of the crises over in Europe, and particularly in the UK. As I said, The Fat Emperor thefatemperor.com. Make sure I get that right. Yes, and just Fat Emperor on X. Please welcome Ivor Cummins. Welcome, sir.
Hey, great to be here, Dr. Drew.
I always worry I'm going to mispronounce your name because when people say it over here, they say Cummings. I don't know why we do that, but we do that. Say your name the way you say it, so I think that's important that I get it right. So please, indulge me.
It's Ivor Cummins, and Cummings is the British.
Ivor Cummins.
Cummins, no
Cummins.
G.
I got it. Cummins. I got to get it with the accent on the first syllable. Okay, gotcha. Cummins. Okay, so but something I've never heard you talk about, I want to just sketch out a little bit because I want to get into some of the bullshit coming out of the World Health Organization right this minute, frankly. What is your original training?
So my original training was biochemical engineering. So I did the chemistry of life, all the biochemistry, some genetics, and also all the industrial processes of biochemical kind of production of drugs,
Right.
etc., devices. And then I worked for 5 or 6 years in medical device, R&D, kidney dialysis development, and then around 20 plus years in high volume production of consumer devices. So that's where I did most of the high level worldwide leadership of complex problem solving teams,
And then you started seeing some root cause issues in our healthcare, which, I mean, these days it's glaringly obvious. I think you probably were early to the starting line on this, but I think most people understand. What did you see at first?
Well, in 2012, I got standard blood tests. I had a few of them that were high: serum ferritin, gamma glutamyl transferase, cholesterol, of course. And when I went to 3 doctors in succession, including a professor of medicine, a teaching professor of medicine in the family, I realized they didn't have the answers for the implications of these super high readings or, what I could do to resolve the causes. Now, they had some ideas and I followed up on them, but they didn't lead anywhere. And then I said, okay, I'll go to ResearchGate and PubMed. I had corporate logons, and I intensively researched the 3 metrics, always with an eye to structured problem solving and finding cause, biochemical, biophysical cause. And in 2 or 3 weeks, I pretty much had it. And I realized we've been given a load of nonsense on diet and health for, I don't know, close to half a century.
Are you aware that in this country, one of the more sort of egregious sources, or what has at least accelerated the poisonous nature of our food here, is that the tobacco companies and their scientists and their lobbyists who made the case for the health benefits of tobacco have just moved on over and bought food and become the food companies. Isn't that crazy?
Well, it makes sense because that's the addictive substance du jour at the moment, and that's where all the money is. So big pharma and big food, they're the two mega industries that thrive on human suffering, I guess.
That's a kind way to say it. Nice way to say it. So the point I want to make is that, amongst other things, you have a biological background. You understand epidemiology, you understand data analysis, you understand biological processes, particularly biochemical processes, which in nature are very probabilistic. They're probably different. Engineers have to be able to really predict outcomes. In life sciences, we think in broad probabilities. It's just a little bit different way of thinking about things, I suspect. But the World Health Organization is out today suggesting that monkeypox is going to be a pandemic of international concern. Monkeypox. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, they brought up this nonsense. I think it was post-Ukraine. So we had the whole cerveza sickness, as some people call it for YouTube, that whole debacle. And then, of course, suddenly that disappeared and it was Ukraine, right? And all of that started. And I think monkeypox came 6 months after that. It was very interesting to observe. So I'm in very large networks of doctors and scientists worldwide, obviously all talking about the C-19 problem for the whole of 2020 and beyond. And we discussed this at length when the WHO was clearly trying one on in the world. And the only thing that surprised us was it was so absurd. We were surprised that they tried that strategy. It was a bridge too far. So we figured, well, they're probably just trying to keep some nonsense out there to keep the feeling of pandemics and pandemia alive. They don't really expect it to take hold because it's absurd, right? And also there'll be profiteering for their buddies in big pharma and other industries. So there'll always be a percentage of people who'll fall for things as quite ridiculous as this. So sure enough, it kind of collapsed under its own weight. Even some mainstream media were beginning to poke fun at it. The ridicule rose. Then they renamed it, and they even admitted it was because of the ridicule that they were renaming it. They chose Mpox.
Yes.
And the whole thing was just an absolute mess. And it failed utterly for them, fell on its face. So it was fascinating.
They're clearly at it again. They're clearly at it again. And when I look at it, it looks like a bid to remain relevant. So it's like a marketing strategy, right? It's like, we're going to be a top of mind. We're going to be a leader in healthcare. We're going to be the source of authority. So it both grab for power and market, right? I think they're doing both. But what you're saying is so specifically true to me, that the way they're doing it for anybody who has any biological medical training is absurd. It's insane. And how it doesn't, and I'm telling you what I'm hoping you'll join me in, is that we mock these people. They need to be mocked, because mocking is the only strategy to put this kind of insanity in its place. I don't have a good strategy. I don't know. I haven't written the jokes yet that should go with this, but we need to come up with some comedy to bring them to right size. They are irrelevant. They're not going to be a centralized authority. They cannot be. This so-called treaty is a disgusting power grab, and they have to be fought on every front, humbly.
Yeah, it's crucial. Absolutely, Dr. Drew. I couldn't say it better myself. Absolutely. So the thing is, it kind of fascinates me because back in monkeypox last time, we figured they need something to stay relevant and to keep pandemia in people's heads.
Yeah.
But they simply haven't got anything. because they're not so stupid that they'd use this if they had something that was in any way credible. And the other interesting thing is bird flu, I was highlighting a couple of months ago. You could see this one bubbling up. Now, I'm not sure. Bird flu, I also see as an anti-meat agenda, an anti-food system. Someone quipped or made a meme and said, isn't it astonishing that no species of birds are affected by bird flu except for the ones we eat? Yeah, I mean, so they're using stuff that, quite frankly, I feel quite good about because it's so weak that we have a good chance. But I agree, it's extremely sinister. They're a serious outfit with the money and the corruption that's behind them now. So we can't take it lightly either. And comedy and satire is vital. And we need to see the memes flood the zone now with the Mpox. That's what we need.
The Mpox needs to be the Monkeypox or the Monkeypox because this is or something. I'm going to figure it out because we're going to find the joke in there somewhere.
Moneypox, actually, hashtag Moneypox was used the last time they tried this nonsense.
Good one. I like it. I'll use that one. Yeah. So I don't know what to do with these people. So we have a communist non-doctor running the World Health Organization, claiming medical authority. There's a strange phenomenon coming around, and we'll talk about immigration. I promise. I know those of you came here specifically for that. I apologize, but I whenever I get biological colleagues, I want to pick their brains a little bit. The bird flu, for me, it's clear the only reason that they're bring that up is that they must be screwing with the virus, and they're worried that it's going to break out, particularly in Wisconsin, and therefore they do want to warn people that it's coming. To me, it's them showing their hand that they're doing gain of function on bird flu. Period. End. Full stop. That's it. That's all we know. And so if you are, folks, guys, let us know so we can put it in a proper context in our head rather than worrying about the chickens we eat getting a virus that causes conjunctivitis. It's terrible. So anyway, okay, I can't. People are going to make a meme of me. Somehow what I just said will become a meme, and it will be embarrassing to me for some reason, and they'll use it to mock me. But okay, fine. That's how this game is played right now. But I want to get to the where somebody flashed up here that my mic was making noise and shaking because we had an earthquake here in Pasadena, California, just a couple of days ago, and it was big. It was a nasty one. Yeah. And it's not an earthquake; it's me hitting the table. It's the table I discovered is the problem, not the mic.
It's not you.
But let me regain my train of thought before I go off here again about the bird flu and World Health Organization. Oh, why I find it this. I've been preoccupied with French politics for the last 6 months, since Macron dissolved the government. And one of the reasons I started watching carefully is I watched Mélenchon, who's a way left guy, stand up with a piece of the assembly, the National Assembly in France, stand up and say, within 10 minutes of the voting results being announced, stand up and saying, okay, I'm in charge now. That's it. The voters have spoken. They want to be communist. Here we go. And I thought, that was the most astonishing thing I ever heard in my life. And I feel like the World Health Organization is doing something similar. Like, hey, I'm an expert. Here I am. I'm the leader of the world's health and the public health for the world. And I've got the money and the backing to do it. So everybody listen to me. Even though we don't want them. We don't want them. We don't need them. Where is this coming from that people just stand up and go, okay, I'm your leader now. I'm the one. It's a really odd thing that's happening.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like I'm 25 years in corporate and I've been in management for 15 years of that. And the reality is the corporation is run from the top, the VPs, the board, the directors at the very top. And they roll down the strategies and the policies to us in middle management or section management. And we have to roll those policies out to the lumpen proles, if you will, not to be disrespectful, but the engineers and staff. And at the end of the day, all you need to do in middle management is keep the upper levels happy. You've got the confidence to implement whatever you need to because you're doing it on behalf of the big guys. And It's only really the big guys that matter. So all of these people, these politicians, are comfortable in the knowledge that they are reporting up to the big guys with all the trillions of dollars, all of the international groups and connections like Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg, WEF, and you could go on all day. And they know this. They know in their minds that they're working for, if not the winning side in the long run, they're working for the side with all the money and power and focus. Whereas around them and below them, people are disjointed. They're not organized. I mean, all the NGOs now suck the teeth of the big guys. So in the old days, a couple of decades ago, you'd have NGOs and powerful organizations opposing this kind of madness. But they've largely been seconded now, usurped into the kind of elite structure, if you will. So that's how they can be so arrogant, because they figure, well, I'm with the big guys and I'll be rewarded and I'll be looked after. And the people down there clearly don't have a clue. For God's sake, we told them to wear masks and they all wore them. I mean, come on. They deserve to be put in a 15-minute city. There's an element of that. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. And I'm in a certain amount of denial about it because it seems so mad scientist, sinister kind of thing to me. I'm going to rule the world and I'm going to make you better. Yeah. And, I blame Rousseau. This has been going on for 300 years. He said, man everywhere in change, it has to be forced to be free. So therefore, we're going to have intolerance in the name of tolerance. And you got the Jacobins, thank you, because of Rousseau. And it's the same idea, as we're going to centralize authority. We're going to make you behave because it's good for you. And you're going to eat bugs, and we're going to give your, go ahead.
Well, it just occurs to me when you say that, absolutely, most people perceive, and we all feel it too, that it's kind of like a conspiracy theory. It's kind of crazy stuff. But you can do a complete switch. And I did from early on, because for me, I always viewed it as simply a bigger version of my corporate politics world, where the top leads and they put whatever strategy they want down. If they give a pay cut to everyone in the company, which they did, 5% forced pay cut, but the company was making a ton of money at the time. So it wasn't legal in Europe, so they had to make it voluntary. And we had to go and get people to voluntarily give up 5% because of the European law. But the key thing is, I view all of this as just an analogous to that. You've got the top people, the rich, the powerful. They are a tribe unto themselves. So I heard someone the other day say, a black billionaire and a white billionaire, they don't have any problem with each other. They're in the same club. It's only when you get down to poor or ordinary people where tensions may arise. So basically, it's just corporatism gone crazy. And as Mussolini said, fascism should be called, by rights, corporatism, for it is the alliance of corporate and state power. So all these things, fascism, corporatism, communism even, they're all an elite kind of sect who wrestle control of the reins of society and then run a kind of an ant farm. At the end, they're all the same, and it's as old as humanity.
I see producer Emily talking about cobalt in Congo and monkeypox in Congo, and I understand there's all kinds of interesting coincidences here. But from a biological standpoint, we're talking about trying to understand these things. And in fact, I have such a positive bias, and it's going to listen to my positive bias, that when I contemplate that there's this cabal upstream somewhere, the first thing I think is, well, God, maybe they know something we don't know. Maybe they have some information that we don't have access to. That maybe they are acting out of goodwill. And then I quickly think about exactly what you're thinking about, corporate behavior and humans generally. And I think, no. You freedom, this is about freedom. And so the whole thing really is the very old battle for freedom. And for myself, freedom of speech is at the center of that battle. How are you fighting these fights?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Of course, freedom of speech is central, and that's why it's being attacked left, right, and center. So the hate speech laws in Ireland, absolute insanity. Luckily, and the way to fight back, unfortunately or fortunately, is awareness. So our biggest job, and it's a difficult one, we've been through COVID, is to make people aware. And there's a way of doing that. I've been reasonably successful, and it's similar to yourself, I guess. You stick to the science and you refer to published data, published articles, and never veer into standing over something that's not defensible, not provable, not backable, uppable. And stay rational and stay calm and just, put across or portray a person who is not talking conspiracy theories, who is just quietly trying to explain to you how this works. So awareness has made them very scared. Thierry in France is going after Elon Musk, and he made a big mess yesterday after the debate with Trump by sending the letter to Musk, and then he had to be denied, right, by the EU authorities because he went too far.
Of course.
So they're making mistakes. They're racing for censorship because they know it's getting dangerous for them. Awareness is too great now. It's a major threat for them. So if awareness keeps growing, and it is growing, and I'm very positive too because of that, exactly like you, if awareness keeps growing, they'll trip up. They'll try and rush in crazy laws. They'll succeed somewhere, but in other places, there'll be blowback. And all the time on Twitter, the free speech platform, people there's still shadow banning. Maybe there is a bit, but let's be honest. I mean, the Trump debate, I know, is there 80 million actual video views and 1 billion hits? The Putin interview with Tucker. These things now are getting out and they can't really stop them. And it really does terrify them.
Terrify them because they lose control, they lose their power. And the fact that people are so preoccupied with power, it's just so odd to me. But okay, people disappoint me sometimes. So in terms of not staying silent, we spoke with, I'm sorry, I'm blocking his name, the gentleman from sort of central England who had the big demonstration in Trafalgar. Tommy Robinson, is that right?
Tommy Robinson, yeah.
Yeah, Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson, he had a big demonstration on Trafalgar Square this last week and then was put immediately in jail for having spoken. I don't know if you're familiar with his whole thing there, but he's been trying to fight for his community and very concerned about the unrestrained immigration and that there seems to be favoritism in the law, I think is, I would say, a way of describing what he's concerned about, where one side is not allowed to speak and the other side is given excessive privileges and dispensation and all sorts of considerations that he doesn't get. What's going on with mass migration? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, well, Starmer, the new politician in the UK, I mean, they're calling him two-tier Keir for that reason. And there's a bunch of memes already out. I mean, some of them are very funny. They have a guide card for the police forces, and it basically shows shades of skin and what they're to do. So basically, if it's very dark, you allow whatever they want to do, rioting. And then as it goes down to more white, you basically arrest them. And
is that a joke or is that for real?
It's a joke. It's a joke. But
yeah, okay. All right.
I got attacked for even sharing the meme by admittedly a minority of people on Facebook, because there's so many useful idiots out there and virtue signalers and closet leftists that is a headwind for us, definitely. But the thing about mass migration, it's much bigger than now. So it's got a history going way, way back, just like despotism. So mass migration can be used as a weapon in wars over the whole of history. You can flood an enemy with migrants and undermine their ability to wage war with you. The EU, many years ago, did a 170-page document on how Europe needed huge migration in from Africa and the rest because of population replacement. Now, it's all made up stuff. It's not actually needed. Because on average, if you look at the finances, it just doesn't help with the future pensions. But that's a long story. But if we go back to the 1920s with Count Kalergi and the Pan-European Union in Europe, they desperately wanted a totalitarian European superstate. And he called out, and one key strategy was to flood Europe with very different peoples to undermine national identity and sovereignty. Because he correctly identified that if a country, and I often give this example, if you've got the Irish and they're playing fiddles and they're drinking Guinness and they've all got their national sports, that kind of country has its own national identity that's clear. And it will want to be absorbed into a big, bland blob of a superstate. And the same with the Swedes, same with the Germans. They've got national pride. One of the most effective ways to destroy that national pride and identity is simply flood the zone. And it actually makes absolute sense. A friend of mine is a very senior manager in corporate. We were just talking about this, and he said, Ivor, that's exactly what we do. And I said, I know, it is. It's self-evident, it's obvious, and it's extremely effective, because the other huge bonus you get, as well as affecting the voting, so the government in Ireland now is sending out messages to all the flood of immigrants saying, hey, you can vote in local elections. You don't need to be all settled here. You can vote. And you know what way they'll vote?
We have that
because
too.
They know who's bringing them in. They sense it. They're clever. They know who's bringing them in. So they'll vote accordingly in their interest. And that's fine. Nothing against them. But you get another huge benefit. You divide society. If you really push, flood the zone, you're going to create dissent and anger. And then when the people get angry, rightly, like in the UK, and begin to get outraged at the two-tier biased justice system and the insanity of what our countries are doing to us, rightly, well, then you can call them extremists, and then you can use that excuse to try and bring in totalitarian laws, like Starmer is doing. He wants facial recognition. He wants ID cards, global ID cards. So it's always the same strategy. It is globalism. It is moving towards a totalitarian, corporatist, allied with state for a properly managed ant farm. They salivate over the Chinese system.
Well, I want to talk about the Chinese stuff in a minute and how they affected our global pandemic response. But why would a continent that has been so ravaged by attempts at totalitarian governments, ravaging the continent, is it something that is just a natural impulse of bureaucracies and governments? They just have to go that way, even when the population has been, I don't have any better word than ravaged by having gone that way.
Yeah, well, it's the old cycle, or I don't know if you've read The Fourth Turning, the 85-year cycle, and there's other cycles in humanity. But the way I simplify it for people is just the sinusoidal cycle over multi-generation. 3 generations is kind of the period, if you will. So basically, it's the old one. Strong men create good times create weak men, etc. What happens is, you get despots rise, the Machiavellian, the sociopaths, they rise over decades into power. They cause an absolute disaster in society. Then society eventually pushes back when it realizes something needs to be done. You get a form of revolution, and then it's all egalitarian and everyone wants things nice. And it gets nice. But after 1 or 2 generations, people forget how it got nice. And they forget that you need to strive every day to maintain it nice. They forget. So the new generations now, and even the old ones who have forgotten, even older people, they have been taught for 30 or 40 years now, indoctrinated, the young in schools, the older through the nonsense media. Anything that involves higher powers acting not in our interest, de facto, it's a conspiracy theory. It's nonsense. So they've been trained for that. The second thing is they've been trained to trust the science, which just means bend over for any expert we shove in front of you in a white coat. And multiple other things over the last 30 years. So we have the rise of the sociopaths, I'd see it. Not all of them in senior levels are sociopaths, but they know what's in their own interest, even if they're not. And that's where we're heading now, into the fourth turning, where things get very rocky, as call them the bad guys, are desperately seeking the power that they desperately need. And you said it's hard for you to believe, and it is, that there's so many people like this who have risen to the top. What drives them? There's two things that drive bad people: money and power. And if they get so much money that it loses its shine, there's only one thing left. It's power. And power over animals. A young sociopath, we know this, will inflict hurt on animals and power over them. And it gives them some, I don't know, respite or feeling of satisfaction. But the older sociopaths who are heads of industry, they need to have power over their fellow species. It's a simple fundamental of humanity. It only feels like power when it's over your species. And that actually, in a nutshell, you could talk all day on that topic. That's where we are. The Soroses, the Gates, the Schwabs, the Rockefellers, and you could go on all day. They're all in all the same clubs, myriad clubs and organizations, and they smell power. They smell more dominion over their species. And that's what drives them, because they already have the money.
It's makes the hair stand up in the back of my neck. It's not a great story, but and you say it calmly, and I want to hear more about how you maintain such a positive outlook. But before I have to take a break here right now, but before I do, you mentioned Machiavellian, these Machiavellian types, or the dark triad types, and I thought to myself, gosh, the reality is, although we think of Machiavellianism as means to the ends kind of thinking, or ends justifies the means thinking of The Prince, which Machiavelli wrote, The Prince. But The Prince was part of a whole series of descriptions of how governments evolve across time through these turnings. And he did not like The Prince. He thought the Republic was the best form of government. He relied heavily on Livy's Republic of Rome. And he thought the Republic was actually the goal, but that during these turnings, a powerful prince is required to reestablish order so you can get back towards Republic again, which is kind of the same. I mean, that was right? It's sort of the same medieval comment, and then we'll go to break.
Well, just quick comment on that. I'm delighted you said that, because it reminded me, I read an article in Unheard, UNHERD, a great British media. Yeah, yep. Good guys. Yep. And it was astonishing. I didn't quite know this about Machiavelli. He also spoke at length about foxes, wolves, and lions. And essentially, I'll paraphrase it. He said, lions rise and create strong countries and regimes, good ones. And they're tough on their enemies, and they're tough on criminals, and they don't apologize for it, but they create ordered society that everyone benefits from. But over time, the foxes take over, the bureaucrats, the banality of evil. And they play politics, and they're clever and cunning. And they begin to turn people against anyone who is lion-like. And they say, oh, they're like troglodytes, and oh, they're violent. And they slowly take over
toxic males. They're toxic males.
Toxic males. And what they do is they do that. And over time, they do well for a period. And then at some point, anger rises, and wolves, angry people rise. And the foxes are not good really at leading, because they got there through slimy politics. So they strike out with bits of violence, but they go into disarray, and then everything collapses, and lions rise to rebuild. So that's, yeah.
So are we the wolves?
We're probably more in the wolf class now, but any of us that really succeed in getting into positions of powers, then I guess we become lions.
I've got to know how you're able to laugh at all this and maintain smile, but we'll talk about it after the break. Well, all right, we will. I want to talk about it. Ivor Cummins, Fat Emperor, and thefatemperor.com. Fat Emperor on X. Be right back. Of course, I'm a fan of the healthy aging supplement True Niagen. I've been taking it almost for a decade myself. This supplement boosts NAD, which your cells need to survive properly metabolically, and it goes down as we age. It does so with a nutrient called nicotinamide riboside, or NR. specifically patented form of NR called Niagen. It's the most efficient and trusted NAD booster. NAD can also play a role in reproductive health. Boosting NAD is recommended with prenatal vitamins for women over 30 looking to start a family. Here's Dr. Amy, also known as the egg whisperer, a highly influential specialist in this area.
That was when I said, this is amazing. I need every single person going through fertility to take it. I not only take it myself, my patients have shared stories. They took it and then they got pregnant naturally. And that's really my goal, is I want people to empower themselves with the tools so that they can get pregnant without my help.
True Niagen is an amazing NAD booster. You're going to want to add it to your reproductive health arsenal.